You're about to hear a call that was never supposed to exist. A 911 call made by a voice barely holding it together. Shaky, almost a whisper, but loaded with pure terror. No gunshots, no screaming, no confessions, but something much worse. The silence between the words, the hesitation between sentences. It's like death itself is listening on the other end of the line, hanging on every breath. This call happened on an ordinary night in a quiet, nowhere town in the middle of America. On paper, it looked like just another emergency call. But when investigators hit play, they realized they were staring into a mystery that didn't play by the rules. The full audio was locked away. The family never approved its public release, but pieces leaked out, fragments that, to this day, no one's been able to explain. Maybe you think you've heard some disturbing stories before, but this one, it hits different. Because what makes this call so unbearable isn't what was said, it's what wasn't. And most of all, it's what happened after the line went dead. So now that you're here, take a deep breath and listen. But be warned, after this, sleep might not come so easy. It was 3:14 a.m. on a Tuesday in Lakemont, a sleepy wooded spot somewhere in the heart of Oregon, when the local 911 dispatcher got a call that at first sounded like every other one. On the other end was a woman. At first, she didn't say a word. She just breathed, struggling for air. It sounded like she'd been running, or she was hiding. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher repeated. Silence. After 8 seconds that felt like an eternity, she finally spoke, and what she said froze the dispatcher cold. "He's here." She whispered it. No hysteria, no delusions. She sounded like someone terrified to be overheard. The dispatcher tried to calm her down, asked her to confirm her address. She just kept repeating, "He's here. He doesn't know I called. Please help me. Please, just listen." On the other end, the dispatcher was already sending cops out. But there was a catch. The phone number didn't match any name in the system. The location ping was unstable. Out in rural Oregon, cell service is spotty, and the tracking system could only narrow it down to a rough area, a 1-mile radius scattered with barns, old farmhouses, and a couple of abandoned homes.
The kind that suffocates you. It was quiet, frightening, like she knew her time was almost up. "He's holding something. I think it's a knife. He said, 'I'm never getting out of here.'" At that moment, the dispatcher heard a noise in the background. It sounded like a door creaking. The woman went dead silent. Then, a muffled thud, maybe the phone hitting the ground. Footsteps, heavy breathing, and then nothing. Just pure, suffocating silence. The call lasted exactly 1 minute and 47 seconds. It ended without a goodbye. Police got to the estimated location 17 minutes later. They searched 3 abandoned properties. At one, they found fresh tire marks, like someone left in a hurry. On the ground, between leaves and packed dirt, was something that shouldn't have been there. A phone with a shattered screen, still powered on. The last call in the log, 911. Time, 3:14. But there was no sign of the woman, no struggle, no blood, no furniture flipped over, just silence. A silence that seemed to swallow everything that happened. The only thing police walked away with was that phone and the gut-deep feeling that they were already too late. The phone was sent straight to forensics, old model, no passcode. The only real clue was that 911 call. The full audio was pulled and reviewed by specialists. What they heard wasn't just disturbing, it was a puzzle. The recording had that muffled, boxed-in sound, like the woman was in a basement or some sealed-off room. Faint echoes, steady background noise. Her breathing was fast, but under control. The fear showed up in every pause, every swallowed word. And yet, there was no panic, like she knew screaming wouldn't help. The tensest moment? 52 seconds in. She says something almost impossible to make out. The audio had to be digitally boosted, and even then, it's not clear. But experts think she whispered, "He doesn't have eyes." That line became an obsession for everyone involved. What did it mean? Was it symbolic? Literal? Was she in shock? Was he wearing a mask? No one could tell. And then, just before the phone hit the floor, she got out another line. "He does this to all of them." That one line changed everything. It meant maybe this wasn't the first time. Who was he? Who were the others? When that clip leaked inside the task force, it left everyone uneasy. One cop who listened to it later said, that voice wasn't someone panicking. It was someone who'd already accepted what was coming.
A forensic psychologist was brought in. She said the woman was showing signs of frozen fear, that kind of terror where your mind just shuts down, your body runs on autopilot. The controlled breathing, the flat tone, the way she picked her words, everything pointed to someone staying calm, not for herself, but because she knew one wrong sound could set off something way worse. The 911 dispatcher who took the call was put on leave for a week. In an off-the-record interview, he said, "I've taken calls during shootings, fires, suicides, but that one, something was off. It felt like someone was listening in right behind her, like she knew she couldn't say everything." That feeling got worse after a technical detail came up. The analysis team found the phone had made a call just before 911 to a local number with the same area code. But that number was dead, registered to a woman who'd been deceased for 2 years. Maybe the phone was recycled, or maybe he was being used as a burner, ditched after each crime, a common trick for erasing digital footprints. They ran her voice through voice recognition software, checked every database. Nothing. No match. The voice was new, anonymous. The woman in that call, to this day, has never been identified. All that's left is the sound, the weight of her words, and the eerie sense that she wasn't alone in that call. Like someone behind her wanted this to be heard, but never understood. After snippets of the audio leaked inside law enforcement, the case was kept on ice for weeks. But, as with every good mystery, the cracks started to show. Little clips made their way to Reddit, true crime forums, underground channels. And then, out of the blue, a woman reached out to authorities, swearing she recognized the voice. She said it sounded exactly like her missing sister, Emily Saunders, gone 7 months. Emily was 29 when she vanished. She worked as a nursing assistant at a rural clinic not far from where the phone turned up. According to her sister, she was quiet, a homebody, no known enemies. Her case had been closed as a possible voluntary disappearance. No evidence of foul play, just her car found abandoned on a back road, and no trace after that. But the 911 call changed everything. Cops reopened the case,
compared the voice to old phone messages from Emily. Not 100% match, but close enough to fire up a new investigation. That's when things got even weirder. The phone the call came from wasn't Emily's. No messages, no photos, no contacts. The phone had been wiped clean recently by the look of it, but the call log was still there. That was odd. On top of that, the last person to see Emily alive, according to old records, was a guy named James Holloway, a local farmer with a history of violence. He claimed he'd given her a ride the day she disappeared, but didn't know where she was headed. Back then, his story didn't hold up, but there was no proof against him. When cops checked out James's old place, they found it abandoned. He'd moved out months earlier, left no address. But out in a back shed, there were still personal things, tools, and a locked box. Inside, a stack of cassette tapes, an old tape recorder, and a bunch of blurry photos. Most tapes were blank, but one had noise, metallic sounds, breathing, and at one point, a woman's voice whispering, "Let me go," sounded just like the voice on the 911 call. The tapes went straight to forensic audio analysis. The cops started thinking James might have been involved not just in Emily's case, but in something bigger, something he'd done before. The family was brought in for more questions. That's when Emily's mom revealed something she'd never told before. Months before Emily disappeared, she said she felt watched. Someone followed her to work. She'd find the gate open, hear noises at night by her window, but could never prove anything. Back then, police wrote it off as anxiety. Now, with the audio, the tapes, the burner phone, everything looked different. Emily's sister said it straight. "If that call's not from my sister, then it's someone who knows her well enough to mimic every fear she ever had." That line stuck with everyone working the case, because if Emily was alive, where was she now? And if she wasn't, who was trying to tell this story using her voice? With new leads piling up, Lakemont PD formed a task force focused just on the Emily Saunders case. Their starting point was the phone. Despite being ancient, it revealed a few big clues. A data forensics tech found location pings showing weird travel patterns in the days before the 911 call. Out-of-the-way barns, thick forest, even an old abandoned asylum nearly 12 miles outside of town. It was like someone was lurking in all the forgotten places, moving with no pattern. Patrols started combing those areas. On the second day, a team reached a ruined cabin deep in the woods.
The place was swallowed by vines, no doors, no windows, covered in dust and dead leaves. In the basement, they found a broken chair, drag marks in the dirt, and something carved into the wall with a knife. No one leaves. No blood, no fingerprints, but the vibe was suffocating. Cops said it smelled like mold, urine, and something worse, like whatever happened there lasted a while. The dogs picked up a scent, but lost it in the mud and branches.
Meanwhile, techs cleaned up the tapes from James Holloway's house. On one, at 3 minutes and 42 seconds in, a man's voice says, "You said you wanted to disappear. I'm just helping." The tape ends with water dripping, chains dragging, and someone breathing way too close to the mic. That changed the investigation. The case was now being treated as a serial crime, maybe with some ritual angle. The FBI stepped in, pointing out similarities to 3 other missing persons cases in nearby states. Every case had the same creepy details. Young woman said she felt watched in the weeks before she vanished. No witnesses at the time of disappearance. Barely any evidence left at the scene. One thing everyone had missed: in 2 of these cases, the victim's phone was found untouched, wiped clean. Only the last call was a dropped 911 call. What used to look like a one-off crime now looked like a method, a pattern, a signature. James Holloway became suspect number 1, but he was like a ghost. The last thing on his ID was months back buying a prepaid phone, the same model as the one used in Emily's call at a convenience store. But no cameras worked that day, no receipt with his name, no fingerprints. It was like he'd rehearsed every step to leave nothing behind. The task force dug into his childhood records. Turns out he spent part of his youth in an orphanage, one that was later shut down for abuse and neglect. Weirdly, the orphanage was right in the same woods where they'd found the ruined cabin. Then came the question nobody wanted to ask. What if the place Emily was kept had been used before? While the tapes from James Holloway's place were being analyzed, one of them was written off as no relevant content. It was chaos, loud static, interference, sounded like it was recorded outside during a storm. But an FBI tech flagged one bit between minutes 17 and 20 when the noise pattern settled. That's when they heard it. With the help of audio restoration tech, the team picked up what sounded like a conversation, not a normal conversation. The woman's voice was muffled. The man's was calm, too calm, like he was teaching something. You don't need to be scared. You just have to stay quiet. They don't hear you when you're silent. It echoed like a code, like the guy really believed this was some twisted logic. No screaming, no begging for help, just words, spoken ice cold. The woman said something back, but it was too muffled to understand. At the end of the tape, a whisper. "This is the 3rd. There are 2 more." That line became an obsession for investigators. 2 more what? Victims? Steps? Places? The FBI started cross-checking missing persons cases from the last 5 years with any similar pattern. 11 cases came up, only 2 stuck out, both around 60 miles from Lakemont, both rural, both with 911 calls that got cut off mid-sentence. One of those calls was never released to the public. The family refused. But with the serial killer theory, the audio was shared with the task force. What they heard left everyone speechless. The call was from a 23-year-old woman. Her voice was shaky, her breathing ragged. She said,
He locks the door from the inside. There's no way out. There are bars. He talks to me like I'm a child, like he's my father. It ended with metallic clanging, just like the tapes from Holloway's place. That audio never went public, but now it was another breadcrumb in the same trail, the same ritual, the same twisted psychological torture. Meanwhile, the tech team found something even more disturbing. The phone Emily used to call 911 had a hidden app installed by command line, a stealth recording app. It captured audio even without manual input. During deep data recovery, they found a second recording. It was never sent. It was 2 minutes, 11 seconds long, started 30 minutes before the 911 call. Footsteps, a gate clanging shut, chains. Then that same woman's voice, barely audible. "If anyone finds this, he called me Julia, but that's not my name." That shattered the last theory that it was definitely Emily's voice, because her sister confirmed Emily never used that name, never had a nickname, never wanted to be called anything else. So, who was Julia? Or better, who was being forced to answer to that name?
Now, the question was, how many women went through this, using names that weren't theirs? With the secret audios revealed, this became more than a missing person case. The FBI now treated Holloway as a serial predator, someone who didn't just kidnap but rewrote his victims, forced new names, new fake lives, and maybe new endings. The theory was he kept his victims alive for a while before killing them. Criminal profilers were brought in. The verdict was dark. James's methods weren't impulsive, they were ritual. Every move was ice-cold calculated, from the burner phones to recording his victims. He wanted to document fear, record the exact moment their real selves died and something else was forced in. The name Julia was probably a symbol, an archetype, a character he imposed on every woman. The internet lost its mind. True crime YouTube, underground forums, closed groups started digging up every overlooked detail. One viral Reddit thread linked Julia to an old case, a girl kidnapped in 1987 by a man who was never caught. She escaped 2 months later. The craziest part? She said her abductor made her repeat every day, "My name is Julia. Julia doesn't cry." That shook the task force. The man from back then was never ID'd, but he was described as calm, methodical, obsessed with rituals. If it was the same guy, he'd started young, decades of practice in total secrecy. Some even guessed he was trained by someone else, maybe grew up where this kind of control was normal. That's when the darkest rumors started. Some researchers said the orphanage where James grew up, the one shut for abuse, was linked to a black market adoption ring in the 80s. Kids disappeared from records. Some were never officially adopted. Others were moved under new names. That's when the creepiest theory started making the rounds. What if James wasn't just a predator? What if he was the product of something bigger? A copy of a system that built him from scratch. Survivors started speaking out. Anonymous voices in leaked audios said the name Julia popped up in more than one hideout, that the abusers seemed to follow a script. Maybe there was a network, maybe a cult. The FBI took the theory seriously, but kept it quiet. Maps were drawn, abandoned buildings, old roads, tool stores, all pointed to a web. Someone with knowledge, method, and money. But the creepiest thing came in an anonymous email sent straight to the task force. No sender, no traceable IP.
You're looking for a man, but you forgot to ask who taught him how. What started as a single 911 call now seemed rooted in something far older and darker. A story spanning decades, and as of today, it's still not over. What makes a voice unforgettable? Is it the words, the tone, or the silence in between? The truth is, some calls don't need to make sense to leave scars. That woman's voice, whether she was Emily, Julia, Madeline, or all of them at once, still echoes in 911 archives, still rings in the headphones of experts, cops, families, and now in your head. Because some audios aren't meant to be solved, they're meant to haunt you. The call started as a whisper, but its echo stretched across towns, states, years. With every new clue, this case stopped being just a mystery. It became a mirror, a cold reflection of what can hide behind plain doors, fake names, silent routines. The voice on the line didn't beg, she didn't cry, she just wanted to be heard. And still, nobody saved her in time. The scariest part isn't that she called, it's that she knew nobody would make it in time. Even so, she tried. She left traces, tried to drop messages, tried to say her real name piece by piece, but time, fear, and control erased it all. Everything except the recording. One last breath frozen in data, a scream locked in bytes and static. Now you've heard it. You're part of this, and maybe, just maybe, you recognize something in her voice. Maybe she sounds like someone you knew. Maybe she sounds like someone who vanished from your life. Or, worst of all, maybe she sounds like you if you were trapped somewhere no one could hear you scream. The line went dead. Police got there too late. The case is still open. But the truth is, even if they close the files, even if they catch someone, even if they find bodies or sort out identities, what happened that night will never be explained. Not really. Because the most terrifying part of this story is knowing there are other voices still waiting to be heard. Other whispers. Other Julias. And the next call might be happening right now.